Welcome back to another episode of Zinespiration, everybody. I'm Ryan, and that's Craig with me as always. And joining
Hello.
us is Alex Wrekk. You probably know her as the author of Stolen Sharpie Revolution. If you haven't read that book, like me, you're in a lot of trouble because it's pretty much the holy grail of zine books as far as a lot of people are concerned. And we feel like we have zine royalty on the show today. Welcome, Alex.
Hi.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
Yay! This is how we know
Okay.
we've made it.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Everyone's had a bizarre couple of months, so, um, you know, I personally have had a bizarre month, and everyone else has, and I finally found some time, so I'm glad I'm able to be here.
So let's start with maybe talking about what you're working on, what you've sort of been working on recently, in to do with your world of zines and some of the other projects you have going on.
My most recent zine is Brain Scan number 34. It's kind of a companion piece to Brain Scan 33, and these are both about secular witchcraft, which is witchcraft without religion. And kind of a thing that I've been doing for like over 14 years now. So they're not really a how-to. It's just kind of an exploratory how I was able to take things from my life and build a practice out of it. And this one is a dabbler's week. So people on the internet were talking about what would you do to have someone learn about your practice within a week, having a thing to do each day. So that's what this one is. And it's kind of like tongue-in-cheek and silly, like go for a walk around your neighborhood and think about things differently. And so those are, I just barely finished 34 right before I left for the Perzine Fest in San Francisco. And that was like the last zine fest I went to before everything got ridiculous in February. That's most recent thing. But the bigger thing I'm really excited about is that I'm working on an update to the Stolen Sharpie Revolution.org website. I have a friend who is my friend's. It's a WordPress site, but I have a friend who's working on making it so that people can update things themselves. So if there's a zine event, you can actually go in and type the information about your zine event. So I don't have to update it all the time. I can just like click and it adds it to the webpage. So if you have a zine distro or a shop, you can just put in your information. We can click on it and then it adds it to a directory. So I'm excited to have that being like a little bit more hands-off as opposed to having to like spend the time to look up every single zine event and every single distro. So it'll be nice when that's active.
I have the 5th edition. So
Okay.
when was the very first one published and how did that come about?
So 2002, the very first edition of Stolen Sharpie was, I literally taped all the pages together, went down to this place in Portland, dropped them off, and it was back when they had to do photographs of each page. Mm-hmm. So for the process, they had to do like creating, it was before the digital versions of it. So they had to actually like take pictures of each page and put them all together. And they didn't have covers on them, and the covers were like red photocopied paper that was stuck to the cover, stapled. So that was the first one, and there were like 3,000 of them, and they went really quickly. So it's kind of like, well, make it into a book. So that's the 5th edition, and the 6th edition just came out. Silver Sprocket Bicycle Club is a kind of a collective of creative people. A lot of comic artists have stuff published with them in San Francisco, and they just published a new edition, which I'm really excited about. I just got a copy. There's like hardback copies of them. I'm really excited about.
Wow. Very cool. Very, very cool.
Things get updated, and it used to have like distros and stores that sell zines, but all of those are so transitional that there's no point putting them in print if like the store is going to be gone in 6 months,
Yeah.
And so there was always that there were distros put in it, and then the distros were out of print were gone by the time that I collected the information and the book went to print. So it's like that's one of the ways that like the internet has made zines really great, in the sense that like you can put things on the internet, you can change them and fix them and keep things updated.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the idea was that I kept seeing the same mistakes in every zine, like words that run off the page, or people writing in pencil and it not showing up. And so I kind of kept talking about like, this should all be in a zine somewhere. And someone was like, why don't you do it? I'm like, okay. So I don't know, put like years of zine things that you stumble upon, things that like people who keep doing zines will eventually figure out. But here's a book, you can put it all in one place.
Yeah, it does cover the spectrum from your first zine to how to create a distro, which is, something that someone might want to pursue after making zines for a while.
That's why I subtitled it the last like 3 editions, I guess, with about zines and zine culture, because it's not just about the single person making the one random zine and being like, great, I have a thing now. But it's also like the fact that the 3 of us are talking right now. It's a cultural aspect of zines. Like it's the not just like sharing your ideas, but like meeting these people behind the zines and the people who are also interested in like creating print media too. And I think that's kind of like the only thing that really ties people together who make zines is the fact that they do enjoy the print media. Because you could be into comics, you could be into political theory, you could be into photographs, you could be into writing fiction. How are those things the same? They're not, besides the fact that you believe in putting them in a print media. And I think there's something really beautiful with that.
You bring up a really great point about like the bringing of the people together, though, and I think that's kind of why Craig and I started doing videos, was to really kind of get that sense of community together. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes like I'll read someone's zine, right, and I'm just so enamored by the work that they've put into it and the passion that they've put into it that I'll read any other zines that they've made, regardless of what the content is about. They could, do zines about wicker chairs that I don't care about, but I want to read these zines just to see how it comes across in their voice.
There was several years ago that one of my zine pen pals who hadn't met in real life before, and we just met and we're like having a great discussion. We're walking down the street and I start telling the story and I'm like, never mind, I've already written that in a zine. You've already read that. And they're like, well, it's different when you explain it. And like, it is like, it's a different way of storytelling. Like you don't get facial expressions. You don't get like the way people gesticulate. Like I can't have my hands sitting still. But I mean, but there is that thing, like the characteristics of how someone writes a story. And then you're just like, well, I'm interested in anything. You're going to talk about like, I don't know, cereal box tops. How would you do that? I always like everything else you do. So maybe I'll like this too. Yeah, and it's definitely
belonging as well, right? Like the community of it, because people who make zines understand other zinesters, right? Whereas, we've said this before, that my friends, like my real life friends, they don't care about my zines. Like, I'll talk about what I'm working on. They're like, yeah, okay, well, whatever, right? Like,
they're
have
like,
fun with your internet stuff.
Your little newsletter.
The little newsletter, or your little booklet. Yeah, okay, that's cute, right? And that's fine that they don't get it, but it's really cool to meet and chat with other people who do.
I've done workshops on zines at things like the Rock and Roll Camp for Girls, where they're there because they want to rock and roll, and like they want to go. Why are they sitting here? Why are they learning about zines? And like it's just another way of expressing yourself. And while there are some kids who are like not really into it, there are some kids who are like, but I can do this. Like I can just tell my story. Like when you see that light bulb go off, you're like, yes, that's the reason we do this.
Yeah. So having been in the zine scene for so long then, Alex, what do you think is the future of zines?
I think we're in a very strange place right now currently to talk about that. Because I am seeing things like Zine Fest moving digitally. Like, how long is it going to be until we can be in a room of tables of people selling zines again? I don't know. I want people to stay safe, and I want people to find zines in a way that makes sense to them. But if you can't go to to a place to make photocopies, then how are you going to be able to print your zines? I think these are. I don't have answers of what I think the future of zines are going to be, but I've got questions about how we can start to think about how are we still creating community and still creating a physical thing, because I'm kind of stubborn in the fact that I think a zine has to be a physical thing. Like, I don't think e-zines are zines. I can't trade for it, And I like to make zines that are like a little gift, like a little package of my words and pictures and just give them to people. So I'm hoping that we can still create a future where that's still valuable and still finding ways to do that. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but as far as zines have gone, I do like the way that the internet has made things almost like easier to communicate with each other. So I don't really have an answer to that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a tough one, especially like you say in this current situation.
I run a zine distro too. Portland Button Works is also a zine distro, and like international shipping is ridiculous because you can't ship as paper, like just paper. If it's a certain size, it has to be a package. So it's like
Yeah.
even if it's 1 ounce, you're still spending from the U.S. You're still spending $13 to send a 1 ounce zine. So my friend Giz in France is really into punk post, and I feel like once we're traveling again, like someone needs to coordinate punk post to be able to even bring a bunch of something to some country and then distribute it somehow. I really do feel that zines are like an international thing, and I don't know if any because I've been to different countries with zines, and I know people in lots of places because of zines, and I really do want to see. Like I think people think I'm joking when I say things like, "Oh, there's a zine fest in Melbourne," but there's also a zine fest in like Texas. Why don't we do a Skype chat where we each talk to each other? People are like, "Ha ha, you're so funny." I'm like, "No, I'm serious." Like I think the future of zines is being able to see people in different places who still enjoy the same thing you do. So that's another future of zines. I'd like to see people being able to have conversations like that.
So this show is called Zinespiration. So tell us a little bit about your inspiration, Alex, please.
Inspiration for what?
So for zines, maybe your first the first time you discovered zines, or maybe were introduced to zines, or even like a current inspiration, someone that still drives you to continue making after 14 plus years.
So I think some of the first zines I ever saw were music zines, and I was like 12 or 13 in the early 90s in Salt Lake City, Utah, which is geographically in the 90s before the internet was very isolated. And I got these zines and I was just like, this is so cool. Who are these people? And I would see addresses, and so I would like put my, get a fact sheet 5, put $1 in an envelope, send it off, get the zine in the mail, and you're like, whoa, I got this thing. And it was a way for me to meet people outside of my immediate area and to be able to connect with people and, trade old bad zines with each other. But yeah, like to me, when I think about zines, that's what I think about in the early time was like finding a way to connect with people, like creating something that feels good and creative and like a piece of me on paper, and then trading that with someone else. So, I mean, that was one of the reasons I wanted to make zines, was to be able to have zines to trade for more zines. It was kind of a reciprocal thing. If I get to know someone, I'm always going to love their zine. Like, so my friend Jonas, he lives in Chicago. He does, what was his last one? He did Fixer Eraser. He did Cheer the F Up. We the Drowned, I think, is his new one. Their new one that I really like. It's weird for doing something for so long and still looking back and being inspired by not really my own history, but the history of zines and the people who are involved and the things that they've made. And it's like, no one has to be like a super zine star or whatever to be important and interesting and unique. So looking at that just reminds me. And I mean, at the same time, I also really love seeing people who went from being zinesters who went on to get book deals or become like graphic novel artists.
So I want to thank you for joining us today, Alex. I've really enjoyed our chat. I've got to learn a lot about the way you think and things like that. So thank you very much.
I hope it wasn't too weird.
No.
You wouldn't believe the stuff we've seen in this show. This is where we wave goodbye.
Okay, thank you.
Bye, thank
Thanks,
you.
Alex, and it fades out.